collecting is gameplay. We've heard it from Brian Tinsman himself. So let's talk a little bit about why. Let me play that clip from Brian for you first.
Being able to collect a set of what you want is gameplay, and it involves all the fundamental elements of gameplay. You have a goal, and there's an unknown outcome, and you have to interact with other players and make decisions, or other traders or collectors make decisions. Whether like, is this the right condition? Is this the right price? Am I going to potentially not see this card again for a long time? Should I just jump on this now, guessing like whether it'll go up or down in the future? If I'm trading something away, is the value that I'm giving away good or bad based on how many other cards I have in my collection? How many extra copies of this I have? It's all gameplay, and so that's something that even a few years ago, I really didn't appreciate.
And so, as you can see, he states very clearly a lot of the stuff about why collecting is gameplay. You're trying to win the trade. You're trying to figure out what your best move is. You're trying to decide, okay, if I trade this now, am I getting something less later? What is the best way for me to get the best deal? And so, in gameplay, there's a lot of different things. In most games, there's rules, there's expectations, there's how do you win. And collecting can seem a lot more subjective than that. And we just had the Dragon Cup. The Dragon Cup is the perfect example of putting together collecting and gameplay and uniting collectors and players in a specific way. We see that the way the Dragon Cup is structured, it is going to encourage collectors to look for specific cards. People are going to be looking for things like, Indra's Citadel and Lumina Scarab. The OCMs for those cards are going to be more difficult to figure out. Now, what does this mean when we say collecting is gameplay? It means that you are playing the game. You are playing a game when you are collecting. You're playing the game of, what do I trade? How do I get what I want best? Do I buy dragon boxes and open a bunch of dragon boxes? What's in my budget? And so one of the things that I think is really interesting about this is to think about, what are the rules? How do you gameplay in collecting? What does that mean to you? And so I'm just going to be talking a little bit about my experience with collecting and trading in the Discord and trying to get the cards that I want. And there's a lot of really interesting things that we can see happening in the Discord and on eBay. One of the first things that I want to point out to people, that if you are not aware, I've said it in my videos before, I'm going to double down on it. If you see something listed on eBay and you know the person who's listed it on eBay and you know them in Discord, I'm not guaranteeing you're going to get a better deal, but reach out to them. By doing a direct deal, you can often save both yourself and the seller some money, because eBay takes a portion, all the stuff that goes into that. First things first, if you can get something instead of on eBay, go for a direct deal. And that is because the biggest piece of this gameplay in collecting is human interaction. It's why a lot of people love trading card games. Trading is a game. It's a chance to interact with people, to pit your wits in its own way. I know my card is worth this, and I know that I have this thing that you want. What can I do to get what I want from you? And it's this really interesting balance of negotiating and figuring things out. For people with a business mindset, this is the exact sort of thing that they're perhaps even practicing in the real world. I took a negotiations and relationship marketing class. in my sophomore year, and it was literally, we would show up, it was a 3-hour class. Don't take 3-hour classes unless you need to. Met once a week for like 3 hours. But we would literally show up to class, and every week we'd be doing a negotiation. And it was this back and forth game of how can I get the best deal for me? Now, one of the things that you have to be aware of is that in Wonders, we are a community. We know each other. We know all these things. And a part of that is that how you interact with people affects how people view you. If you make a bunch of deals and you shaft a bunch of people and you basically only bargain for what's best for you and don't behave with respect and compassion and all of the things that make us good members of a community, you can bet your bottom dollar that you're going to have a harder time finding deals in the future. And I think this is something that I don't see this in our community very often, but this is one of those things where vouchies come in, if you don't know, in Wonders, if somebody's looking at a high dollar deal with somebody that they've never done a deal with before, or just even a deal with somebody that they don't know a lot about, they'll often ask for a vouchie. That's time for somebody else who's done a deal with them to come up and say, hey, they're a great person, loved working with them, had a great deal. Or, Grace's opinion, you should not put a negative vouchie in public unless it's something big, like this person stole all my money and this is a bot, or this is a bot account. Do a deal with it. I tend to think that negative vouchies should be done as a direct message. And so my point in talking about this all is that as much as you are playing the game of, okay, how do I get the best deal? You're also keeping in mind, how do I preserve these relationships? I was talking with, this is a hypothetical, but like also kind of true to reality. This has happened to me before. I was talking about doing a deal with someone, and we were working it. They were looking for something that I was looking for, and went quiet for about 2 weeks. Hadn't heard anything. I had been a little distracted. And then I got a really good deal to even just borrow the card for the Dragon Cup. It was an OCM that was sought after. And I got a good deal just to borrow the OCM. And so what I did, as the kind of person where I want to have good relationships and also still want to get the best deal, is I said, I reached out to that other person. I was like, hey, I was doing a deal with you first. Got a good offer. Are you still interested? Do you still need this card? Like, where are we? And that person was like, I've got enough formless foils to cover that card in my deck. Go ahead and lend it to them and get what you can get out of lending it to them. And we've got a good community like that. We treat people well as a whole. When I think of how we treat people, I think we treat people better than I think more that we treat people good than we treat people poorly. And that's the great thing about being in a community, is it's a place for trading. It's a place for doing all these things. And I know some of you are probably thinking to yourself, but Grace, the whales, they have all the cards, and it's making it hard for me to get my hands on the cards that I want. And that's valid. But also, without the whales, we wouldn't have the Dragon Cup. We would not have people able to build teams and build multiple decks the same way. And I think that's something that we have to be aware of, is every piece plays an ecosystem. Do you necessarily have to like that the whales have a bunch of cards? No, but you do have to be aware that they do play a role in the ecosystem of collecting gameplay and in actual gameplay. I'm not telling you to think it's good or bad. I'm just telling you to make sure that you think about all the different ways that things are affected by the different things. And by all means, if a whale has a card that you really want, reach out to them. Like, see if you can work a deal, because there are some cards that you are not going to be able to get. You are not going to be able to get you might not be able to get some stone foils that people have worked really hard to collect. Or, Corruption Warp is my proof. If I have only one copy of the Corruption Warp Formless Foil left, you're not getting that Corruption Warp Formless Foil for me because it is so valuable to me. But you may be able to work a deal. It might just mean that you're giving up more because you see the value of this card as this to you, and the collector sees the value of the card as here for them. So you have to figure out a way to bridge that gap. Now, I am not saying that you should accept every first offer from anybody, because I don't know about y'all, but if I'm in a heavy negotiating mode, and I want to try and get something for $25, and I'll send an opening offer of 24, because that's how negotiations work. That's how the game of negotiating works. If I get it for $24, great. I saved myself $1. And somebody that I'm working with may not have, they may have been okay with that offer. And yes, I'm aware that talking about this publicly means that when I'm bargaining with people, they're gonna know that. But that's the way that this game works. If most people know that and know that it works that way. And so it's all just a game of understanding people. And I think that's the really interesting part. It's a game of give and take, and how do you know people? What do you know about people? And all of the above. And so I think that's the fun part. And I think Brian said it best in that first clip that I showed you. But I just wanted to elaborate on it a little bit and talk about what this means when we look at collectors versus players and all these things, and we have all these feelings about the A and B and all the stuff. And I'm not saying that I side either way. I tend to be a player. I tend to be frustrated when I can't get my hands on the cards that I want. But I also recognize the importance of other players, of collectors to the community, and I love being able to trade and try and work out deals to finish my collection. I have something like less than 15 mythics that I need for my personal collection, and I am slowly but surely working some deals with the cards that I have to get those mythics. And I'm, figuring out how much money do I have? Do I have the money to spend on this card? Okay, cool. I can try and get it for X amount that I have in my budget. Okay, don't have that in my budget? That's okay. I won't go for this card right now. If I have a budget of whatever, I don't go over it. That's my rule. Everybody has their own rules for these sort of things. And so I just wanted to take a little bit of time to really elaborate on this quote from Brian. I thought it was really fun and really interesting, and I thought it's a way to look at collecting in a different way for players, and just to try and think of it more as a game, to think of it perhaps with a little bit more empathy, even if you don't. Grace's Be a Hero gaming moment. I think that even if you do not agree, even if you think that somebody is completely wrong, you should still try and look with empathy and try and understand where they're coming from. Whether it's politics, whether it's a fight with your parents or your significant other, there's so much going on that we don't always understand what the other person is thinking. And so trying to look with empathy and understanding, okay, I see it from this point of view, they see it from that point of view. I'm gonna hop off my soapbox now and just wrap us up with I hope everybody had an amazing time at Vegas. And as always, please like, comment, subscribe, and keep being your wonderful selves.